This is SciByte, episode 84 for March 5th, 2013. Hi everyone, and welcome to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science, news, and information podcast. Fresh Wednesday mornings over at jupiterbroadcasting.com and live Tuesday evenings over at jblive.tv. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey Heather, happy science to you.
Happy science.
All right, what are we talking about today?
All right, we're going to take a look at an HIV-infected infant that is functionally cured, a really old star, a big Antarctic meteorite, renaming a NASA center, updates on the private Mars mission and the Dragon spacecraft supply mission, Curiosity news, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
It was a science, action-packed news week. I mean, just headline after headline this week. I was like, I can't wait for SciByte. So let's jump into our first story with the news. Okie dokie. What are we going to talk about first, Heather?
All right. A team of researchers from Johns Hopkins Children's Center have described what they call as the first case of a so-called hands in air quotation mark functional cure in an HIV-infected infant.
Okay. That sounds like a functional cure is a pretty important distinction from a traditional cure.
Yeah. A functional cure is something when a patient achieves and maintains long-term viral remission, so you don't have to have lifelong treatment. Clinical tests don't detect it, but when you go in and you have really ultra-sensitive methods, you can go in there and you can see bits and pieces of the virus still.
Like the DNA? Yes.
Now, in this specific case, the infant reportedly went into remission after receiving heavy-duty treatments within 30 hours of birth. Most of the time, they put in a high-risk infant, they put them in sort of a low-dose regimen until they get a blood sample back, and then they kick it up a notch.
One of the things I had heard, I don't know if you, but I'd only read this in one spot. I don't know if you've picked this up anywhere, but some people are saying that they believe they might have administered the super strong dosage before they'd actually even confirmed that the baby had HIV yet. Like the test hadn't come back yet. But they knew the mother had it, and so they just wanted to go for it.
Yeah, I was thinking that, and I read one other place where supposedly they got some sort of a fast response saying chances were very high or chances were likely. But for a little while, I was thinking that too. It's where doctor just made a call. It's like the one hospital that the baby was born in, they didn't have the type of medication that they could give an infant, so they had to ship it to a different hospital. Or the baby to a different hospital. And then there, a doctor, for whether he had a confirmation test or not, whatever you say, he decided to do, and it was the 3-drug regimen. So it was 3 different fairly powerful drugs, all within 30 hours of birth.
And this seems like one of those things where, okay, maybe like he just shocked it out of the system, right? But it sounds really dangerous to give that level of dosage to a brand new baby. That's got to be risky. So a hard thing to test further, right? Like you don't want to do this to more babies necessarily, because
they're trying to look forward and see, well, what does this mean? Can we use it again, or is it just in this specific instance? And in some cases, it's a risk weighing measures.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what would the long-term effects be of these drugs versus what would the long-term effects be
being HIV positive? Yeah.
Being HIV positive.
That's very true.
It's, in a very off, not at all a one-to-one comparison, but chemo is bad for you. It makes your body unhappy.
Oh, yeah.
Better than the alternative. So it's a very give and take here. There are actually people who are sort of naturally sort of viral suppression. So that's really, really rare. Less than 0.5% of HIV-infected adults actually are able to sort of have this elite controller status where their immune system is able to sort of rein it in and keep it to sort of clinically undetectable levels. So they have it, but it's sort of reined in at a low noise level. And then, you have this infant that's functionally cured. You have one, this is the only case of this functionally cured, where they can see little bits of the virus. Now, it was a very tiny piece, and it wasn't even able to be, it couldn't reproduce. So it's just,
kind of just been, it's sort of like it's still in the system, but it can't do anything of harm that they can tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's little tiny corpses that can't zombie back to life.
Okay.
They can't zombie back.
Little HIV zombies, huh?
Well, they're not zombies.
Right. Oh, right.
They can't
right,
zombie.
Right. They can't zombie. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yeah, there's one case of a complete sterilizing cure where there is absolutely no case, no, can't read it at all in the body. But that was a really strange, rare case where a man was able to get treated with a bone marrow transplant because he had leukemia, so he had to take out his whole immune system, get a bone marrow transplant, was able to get one from somebody who was one of those highly resistant people. And through that whole complicated matter, somehow he ended up being completely cured. But in this case, it was, like you said, an HIV-infected mother had these combination of really strong retrovirals.
Right.
And they actually was able to show, as the days went on in the first month of life, that it was progressively diminishing, and they were actually unable to detect it at 1 month old. Now, they were able to maintain the antivirals up until 18 months of age. And then from what the hospital says is the mother had some sort of life issue, something along that line, and they completely lost track of the kid.
Yeah. The kid just kind of fell out of the system.
Yeah, and then finally the state was able to track it down.
And I guess during this time, the mother wasn't even administering medication.
No, there was absolutely no medication administered for 10 months.
Yeah.
And so then they went back and they're like, okay, where do we stand? And that's where they said, wow, we don't detect anything. With any of these antibodies, all the standard clinical trials were
So how do
negative.
we know we can totally trust this if they didn't have a solid confirmation? Did they ever get confirmation from right after birth? I mean, they went.
Yeah, I mean.
Did they? I've never heard. Like, did they eventually get reports back to say, "Oh yeah, that baby was HIV positive"?
Yes, it was HIV positive.
Okay.
The question is whether or not, I've seen some question marks as to whether or not the doctor started before the results came in, or was it somebody said, yeah, I think so, as the quick response, and then the official, report was going to come back later.
Right. The thing that strikes me about obviously this has, if they can reproduce this has ramifications around the world, but
yes.
There are some areas of the world where there's a very high birth rate of HIV positive babies, where they come out and they get it because the mother's got it, and
yeah.
I mean, if you could treat them down there, you would eventually have massive reductions in the spread, I would think.
Yes. Now, if you can have the right prenatal care, they're actually up to 98% of newborns that are born to an HIV positive mother with the right treatments don't have it. They can reduce it down to only 2% of infants born if they have the right prenatal care.
Wow.
But in these cases where there is no prenatal care, which is a lot of places in third world countries. So can you do that? Will it work? Is it in this specific case only because it was right at birth? You hit it with all these powerful drugs. One of the problems with treating it is you treat it, it's kind of cleared out, but somewhere in your system there's a little closet, a very tiny closet where it's hiding, and it's got the door shut and it's hiding behind some, coats or something. And then once everyone's cleared out and it says, okay, you're free, that it pops out of the closet and it continues to, reinfect. So it's that case where were they able to hit it hard enough and early enough before the immune system was, while it was still settling in, is that, was this, in addition, able to completely knock it out before anything had the chance to go and hide in some closet or nook or cranny somewhere.
It's kind of this interesting mix of situations too, where there was this early dosage, and for better or for worse, the mom falls out of the system, so she wasn't medicating the kid, and so. But what that also tells us is that it wasn't a prolonged regimen that cured it; that it was an initial dosage, and that is such a critical piece of information.
Dosage. Yeah, high initial dosage, and then they did dose until 18 months old.
Okay, but still, but
at that point. There was nothing.
But I guess what my point is, if she had continued dosing, just like part of the system, kept coming in for checkups and all that stuff, they might have attributed the clearing up to that following the regimen.
Maintaining the regimen,
yeah. And
is it the fact that, you're totally correct, the fact that it's totally knocked out of the, out of the radar, and then they come back and like, okay, where do we stand? Oh, wait, we stand kind of in the clear.
Yeah, they're probably like,
what's going on here?
Could you imagine they brought her in after 10 months and they said, oh, we got to get her tested. We got to run the blood. We got to see what's in there because she hasn't been taking this medication, so we're really concerned about her. That was probably the conversation.
Oh, yeah. They had, state, maybe child welfare or something going out and trying to specifically look for, this person. There was, just they're out there like on the radar saying, hey, if anybody sees this person, we're really looking for them. There's a sick kid without medication now. So, but in the end, I really don't know. Obviously, there's not enough data for one person does not equal complete answer. But this does enter the case of, okay, this actually occurred. Can it occur again?
And oh man, I am just so sketchy on the details on the story, but I thought I heard too that there was another kind of case alike, or there's been some other cases kind of like this around the world that they're going to look at now and say, well, that kind of sounds like what happened here. Let's go take a look at your scenario and see if it kind of is the same thing and see what your results are. So they're starting that process too.
Yeah, and I remember reading some, I don't recall now, some article that was indicating that the breastfeeding was not actually passing it on, that there was some thing that the body was secreting in the milk to kind of fight against it.
Oh, wow.
So it was sort of a natural, saying, with the right things going on, is that was not actually passing it on. So there's a lot of different directions to go from here.
Yeah.
But, if we can start knocking it out.
Yeah. Slowing it down at least.
Yeah, slowing it down there, then that's going to take a mighty step forward.
Mm-hmm. This got quite a bit of attention. I saw this in the headlines.
All
Monday, was it? Because I think did it break over the weekend? I can't remember what day it was, but just lots and lots of coverage.
Because I had some stuff, and it was kind of, the show notes were kind of settled out, and then I saw that. I'm like, all right, who's on the chopping block? You, story, yoink.
I know.
Threw it off the radar, went through an article or two, highlighted it up. Like, okay.
All right.
You get the upgrade. This isn't important enough. You get the upgrade.
Well, it's fascinating stuff. Just the philosophical side of me is really scared the hell out of HIV and AIDS, and just anything we can do that kind of gets some control into that. And even if things are not as bad as they used to be, I still, in some parts of the world, they're still just awful.
Oh,
so this is awesome.
Incredibly bad. Yeah.
This is just 100% good news for the family and that kid, and then possibly could be great news for science and humanity. So this is just like a great news all around. Oh, yeah.
Even if it only works in a percentage, does it work in 10% of cases, 40% of the cases, then still that is another percentage of cases that you're being able to slow things down and treat.
Yeah. Hopefully this kid wasn't just a one-off.
Yeah.
Like a special like little mix of whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff, Heather. Fascinating stuff. And of course, lots of links in the show notes and more information. But any other thoughts on that one?
No, just kind of waiting to see what goes on here.
Where it goes next.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick pause, and We have a special pick. Now, these picks are ones that we throw a link to these at the top of our show notes, so you just go find episode 84 and you'll find a link. And when you buy from that link, it'll support the show and the network. And we use that to pay for the bandwidth and all of that kind of stuff that thankfully goes up. I mean, that always costs us more all the time, but we're also always growing more. So the more of you who continue to come on and use our affiliates, it actually kind of is a beautiful little symbiosis there. And this week, Heather's new favorite game is our pick, the new Sim City.
Yes, I may have stayed up a hair late last night. Not really all that late. I was able to sleep and not fall asleep at work. But it's definitely looking at it, getting it downloaded, and then pick up some food on the way home, check it out. I was like, oh, wait, I need to go set up SciByte. So I went out here and set up, and then it was my goal to get myself a fire department and a police station set up in my little town.
Yeah, that
was
cool.
my goal before I actually came out here.
And you did it?
I did.
Good job. Well, I'm looking at this, and I used to play the old Sim City, and they have really fancied this thing up. I mean, you can get down in there, and there's some real detail here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. There is significant changes from old Sim Cities, which I hadn't played. But from what I can tell, all the utilities are just sort of automatically routed along roads. But
so your power and your oil or gas or whatever it might be.
Yeah, power, water, electric, all that kind of things are through the roads. But I think it's interesting. There's heat maps essentially saying, hey, here's your pollution, here's your water, hey, coal is over here. And if it's in the middle of where you plan to do downtown, then you're like, do I want to mine coal? Maybe I better move downtown.
I'm wondering. I think one of the things I do like about this Amazon purchase, but I'm still kind of curious what if I get this, what way I might go. But they've got the box version. You can still get it in the box, and then you don't have to worry about digital download. But then Amazon also has a digital download service separate from Origin that you can buy from and download it from Amazon. But you did point out that you still need an Origin account to play the game.
Yeah, you have to log on to Origin, and they've said some of the simulation calculations are on their server side.
Wow.
Now, it is online as well. You can play with other people, or you can make a sort of your own personal server game.
Cool.
Which I did with the hubby. So he'd been able to play a little bit earlier than I had.
Do you guys have a persistent world between each other?
Yes. Oh. He'd set up his town a little bit for me. So he had his fire department and his police station, and then I started when I got home. And he's like, here, let me help you out. So he assigned a police car and an ambulance.
He sent guys from his town to... No.
He was able to assign them over to my town. So I had one of his cops come and arrest a robber, and I had them come over, and they ended up putting out a fire. One of my houses started burning down.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
So he was to the rescue.
Heather,
and you can sell power to other, here, I have oil, let me sell it to you.
I did not know that. And now, Soccer Room in the Chairman says I should have known that, but I didn't know that. That is so cool. So I think I'm going to go download from Amazon. Then I can keep my never downloading games from Origin streak, and then, except for one. But then I have an Origin account, so I think that's the route I'll go. Wow. That is so cool. I mean, Ange is on a Mac. But what I was thinking is that it is kind of a great spouse setup there, because she could have a version and I could have a version, and we could help each other out, and we don't have to be in competition at all, right? We could all be cooperative. Yeah. That's fun. That's fun. All right. Well, there you go, folks. If you want to grab that and have some fun, just grab the link in our show notes and support the show when you do so. All right, Heather. Well, then let's move right along now that I'm just purchasing SimCities real quick, and let's get into the news bite. I love that Amazon one-click purchase. All right, Heather, what is our news bite topic?
All right. A star that is almost as old as the universe.
That's old.
Yes, that's very old. So we're able to tell somewhat the age of stars if they're really ancient because they're metal poor. So they don't have a lot of metals in them.
So is this I'm probably jumping ahead. You're probably going to tell me why. I won't jump ahead. Never mind. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay. So heavier metals are sort of created from, the only way you can get them is supernovas. So if you have something that doesn't have a lot of metal in it, a star that, or a system that hardly has any, then that means that it's probably very old. It's from when there wasn't a lot of it, so there hadn't been a lot of supernovas, so there hadn't been a lot of stars, and it kind of rolls forward, or back as the case may be. and it's only 190 light years away. Now, far, not far, but sort of near us in the fact that with a star this old. So they can be used to these old stars can be used to sort of constrain the age of the universe. So we're able to tell, all right, we're fairly certain that this star, if we can get its exact age, then we can kind of range off that the age of the universe. So, there hasn't been a lot of supernova. They're not, it's not enriched with metals. So we can get a better idea of what's going on. Now, in fact, this specific star only has 1% of the iron content as the sun.
Huh.
And, from there, you're able to see from the Hubble Space Telescope is able to look at the Hubble constant. So the speed at which things are accelerating away from each other. So you can use that to say, all right, if it's going at this speed and it has this little iron or this little metals, then you can kind of start calculating from different directions to try to get a better idea of the age. And in fact, what they're able to do in this case was look at the parallax, which is, the star movement. Say, put your finger out, a foot in front of your face. Look through your left eye, then your right eye. See, it sort of moves. Now, your finger is not actually moving. It's just that your point of observation is moving. So if we're able to observe a star when we're on one side of the sun, say, January 1st, and then 6 months later, we're on the other side of the sun, we observe it again. And was there a little bit of movement in the star? And from that, we can calculate exact distance of where that star is.
Huh.
So we can say, okay, it's located right here. It seems to be going this fast. It has this little iron. So calculating from a lot of different directions, we'll be able to say that, yes, it's not conflicting that the age of the universe is 13.7 billion years old.
See, I was going to ask you a really stupid question, so I'm glad I didn't ask it. But I'll just, in full disclosure, what I was going to ask is, how can it be as old as the universe unless it was like closer to the source of the Big Bang, and so maybe it was one of the first things that formed? But it's not that at all. It could be anywhere in the universe, but it just happens to be one of the first things that formed.
Yes. Now, it's kind of one of those weird things where it's hard to wrap your brain around, and my brain even, it kind of looks at the Big Bang origin universe stretching out. I mean, obviously one tiny little spot, and it accelerates really fast.
Right.
And it's this, the speeds of the expansion and the shape of the universe. And then, there's a whole bunch of just blobby gas, then it starts blobbing together, then it starts gravitationally sort of mushing into circular objects, and then you're able to make a star. So these first stars and these first sort of when the stars gather together and make these sort of galaxies. So it's all these different things, and you're just looking at what and where those old stars look like, and you're able to tell that they're so old because they have such little metals. So it's kind of giving us a better idea of what stars looked at, how they were forming and how the universe looked early on in the, dawn of time, you should say, and kind of getting a better idea of where the time clock started. So
it's so cool we can see from our little corner of the galaxy.
Yes, and see what's out there. Let's find out.
Let's take a look. All right, Heather. Well, should we move on to the 2-Byte news?
Let's go.
The band decided to come back, even though I fired them. They did that little performance for us pro bono.
They keep coming back. We can't send them away.
It's actually kind of a big problem.
Yeah.
All right, Heather. Well, before I have to file for that restraining order, let's talk about meteorites.
Yes, in Antarctica, you can go and search for meteorites. There's there's certain areas in the Antarctic that sort of conglomerate them together. There's a couple of videos in the show notes kind of helping visualize this.
Okay.
Where the ice sheets actually sort of rotate, like tectonic plates. You know,
Okay.
they sort of dive down and come up. Now these specific plates go up to a shed of mountain sheets, and they all kind of come together in a certain area. And then the wind is really hard and fast, so it's sweeping away the ice on the top. And the way it's coming together, you get these fields where all the asteroids that have landed in this whole giant area all sort of get dumped in this one specific area.
It
So
like,
you can
it
just
like
sort of
shifts them down in like down into that area. It
Yes.
sifts them down into there.
yes, it's they get buried in snow into the ice, and then they sort of take the conveyor belt all the way over to near the mountains. So then you have Antarctic expeditions where you go out and you pitch your little tents in a frozen ice solid, and then they get on snowmobiles and little cross-country vehicles, and you drive around and you look for rocks. Now, it's not like there's a rock that has to be a meteorite. There are actually little rocky exposures, but for the most part, you can look out and you're like, hey, let's go over there and look at this. Now, in this specific instant, they've been locating them through this sort of fashion since 1912. So, but this specific recent expedition was from a Belgian and Japanese expedition. They found 425 meteorites in about 40 days. Now, what makes this interesting is that they found a 40-pound or 18-kilogram meteorite. Now, this is the largest found in East Antarctica for the last 25 years. It's the 5th largest meteorite ever found in East Antarctica.
Oh.
It's, 0.08% of all meteorites found in that area have been bigger. Only 0.08%.
Huh.
So they've made, some initial tests that say it's sort of a ordinary chondrite, sort of a run-of-the-mill meteorite. The sort of like very similar to the one that burst into fragments over Russia a few weeks back.
But they don't know if this is new?
Oh, it's ancient.
Okay, so it's been here for a while.
Yeah, these things have been here for a while. They land all across the sheets.
And then,
they
the
get
shifting
buried,
process, yeah.
They get buried in snow, then they kind of travel down
I just wondered
underneath.
When you said the
sheets.
Russian meteorite, I started thinking maybe it came with all of that and it landed up there, but no.
No, it's just the same type.
Yeah.
It's a duck. It doesn't mean that it came from the same place or it's a new duck.
Yeah.
It's from way over there. It's just
It's got to get
duck.
sifted. It takes time to get sifted.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just saying it's a similar type, but the fact that they do these expeditions every year whenever the weather permits that they actually can. You have to wait for the warm months, quote unquote warm months.
Wait for the top 2 layers to defrost at least.
Yeah, so you don't freeze solid. You're only frozen sort of solid. So, they go out and they take pictures, and they're really careful about gathering these things up. They use gloves and try to keep it as clean as possible because it's so cold and because of the environment, it's very pristine. So it's not really contaminated by anything. So you can go in and you can look at them, and they'll oftentimes show a picture of something else near it, so you can be like, here's a pen, so you can kind of give the initial picture of this rock we found right here, a GPS location facing this way, this side up, it's about this big. I've actually seen there are some teams that go out and they have a little square cube that has north, south, east, west written on it, and top, bottom. So you can say, all right, this is a 1-inch square or 1-inch cube, and put it down and say, yep, put the north facing north, and that's how it is. That's how it was oriented at this specific location. So you can get a lot of details out of where they were found, what they are. But this specific one was just sort of eye-popping to me because it was so large.
Yeah. It sounds, I mean, like a lot of work and very cold and very uncomfortable, but
Yes.
like kind of adventurous too.
Yes. So somebody will, you're out riding and you see a rock. So you stop your snowmobile, you get off and you go over and look. And if it looks promising, you stand up and you like wave your little arms, your very covered little arms full of stuffing. And then everyone comes over and then like it's funny, I've seen pictures like four people all gathered around on hands and knees looking at this one tiny little rock.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? I don't know. What do you think?
Is it
I
a
think it's promising.
meteorite or a meteor wrong?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Ta-dun.
They had a little that was their joke. I took it from their video.
Yeah, it's okay. I was gonna pretend for you.
Thanks. That was nice of you. I should have just rolled with it then. Maybe that silly audience never would have caught on. I could have gotten away with it.
That's
I deserve it. That's for me.
oh.
All right. Well, very interesting. And any other thoughts on that?
No, just very hard to get there, very hard to be there, but sometimes you get really cool results like this.
So when I think of Neil Armstrong, I think that Armstrong. That's a great name. That's strong. Yep. I like that.
Very iconic.
Yeah. Turns out a few other people might like it too, huh?
Yes, indeed. The House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives, should I say, has voted to rename NASA's Dryden Flight Center in Southern California to the Neil A. Armstrong Flight Research Center. And then there's a whole testing area that they would sort of keep Dryden's name. So they'd be like, you get, Dryden Testing Range.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But they actually sort of worked together back in the day. Dryden was the visionary behind some of the rocket planes in the Apollo program that Neil Armstrong actually flew. So he was sort of envisioning and Dryden was designing these sort of test planes, and Armstrong was actually able to fly some of them. And actually, Dryden, who this was named after, and they're hoping to sort of pass the torch on, he's the one that actually recommended to Kennedy to say, hey, you should say we should put a man on the moon in 10 years. I think it's achievable. It's something that we could do. It's something people could rally behind. Now, unfortunately, he was never able to see that happen. But
yeah. Huh. Well, very cool. So his name wouldn't, and I like that his name wouldn't be gone. No,
they're not going to remove his name.
That's nice. That's a nice touch. It's classy.
Yeah, it's going to be, just the surrounding test range would be him.
And this is done. They've already approved it.
Now, the House of Representatives has passed it. Now, they have tried to pass this 2, maybe up to 3 times before. And it just doesn't go through all the various processes. Now, this is the first time since Neil Armstrong has been, has passed away. So you're thinking there might be a better chance this time so that it could be named after.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yes,
all right, then strap on your spacesuit because we got a spacecraft update.
We do indeed. Last week, may have mentioned that the Dragon space supply mission to the space station was scheduled to go, and it was sort of a awesome, here's number 2, it'll be cool.
Yeah.
And there was a problem right after launch. It's not blown up. It is actually attached to the space station now.
Okay.
But there was a glitch right after launch that now we had that glitch months ago in launch where the other spacecraft that was hitching a ride couldn't get up to the proper altitude. Now the launch vehicle actually worked without a hitch. Now what happened is it got into orbit and 3 of the 4 sets of thrusters didn't immediately kick in. So you have these 4 sets of thrusters that are able to help it maneuver in orbit. Now 3 of those 4 didn't actually kick on.
Okay.
So they're thinking, maybe it was a stuck valve, maybe it was a line blockage.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, the solar panels swung out about 2 hours later than planned. Now, about an hour later, they were actually able to raise it into a safe altitude. But there was a point where there was a little bit of nerve-wracking going on, because if they didn't get something back on track soon enough, then its orbit would start decaying and it would become in a dangerous, place where they might not be able to sort of come back.
Okay.
But they were able to come back, and then SpaceX and NASA were sort of watching it very carefully, making sure that, yes, it is in a safe orbit. Yes, it's actually working. No, it's not going to be doing anything funny. Now, SpaceX said, we're on hold now. Technically, it could sit there in orbit and be on hold for a while, maybe up to a month or so, if, NASA needs that long to decide that it's okay. But they did able to say, it was okay. It launched Friday morning. By late Saturday afternoon, they'd had enough recovery work. NASA said, okay, you can go ahead and start bringing it in, and we'll rendezvous with the space station early Sunday morning. So they're able to capture it very early Sunday morning, had more than a ton of supplies. They actually had some needed equipment, like air purifiers and things.
Good. So I'm glad they let it go then.
Yeah, the only downside was, because this is such a quick turnaround, oftentimes the SpaceX people put in some fresh food in the last mission, and they had some fruit in this one.
Oh.
So fruit probably didn't make it so much.
Oh.
But it's okay. So this is the first time there's been trouble in orbit. None of the other missions that they've had, had thruster issues.
And
this is the first time.
This is 2 of 11, right?
Yes.
In the contract?
I believe so.
I mean, do you think, by number 5 and upwards until probably number 11, do you think at that point the press will just completely stop caring?
Probably.
It'll just become routine?
Yeah, look at the space shuttles. I mean, you had a whole bunch of press coverage, and then it starts diminishing until something happens. Or, some sort of big event. And so then suddenly everybody's watching it again. And it's diminishing returns of viewers. Yeah, everybody has their 15 minutes of fame, including science stories.
I bet it was a banana. I bet they were bananas, because you think about it, that's probably the safest thing to eat in 0G, right? Because you can't do strawberries. Apples are not bad, but there's still a lot of, if you get a nice juicy apple, there can be some drippage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd bet banana, because even then the peel, not ideal, but manageable.
Yeah.
Manageable in 0G.
True.
If you find out, will you let us know?
Yeah.
Speaking of story updates, I think we have a few story updates, don't we?
We do.
All right, then that would be, let's go with, and a little bit of updates.
There we go.
All right, Heather, what is this? Oh, excellent.
Yes, we mentioned the Russian meteorite just briefly earlier. There are more than 100 fragments that have been found from this now. They've been found along this 50-kilometer, 30-mile trail along this path. Now, we found a lot of small meteorites. Now, they've actually been able to find in a wide crater near a lake, but now they've discovered the biggest chunk so far, actually weighing more than a kilogram, 2.2 pounds. So they believe there are probably more to be found, possibly a chunk along this size, maybe even bigger. They're thinking that there might be something along the bottom of this lake. Some people may have seen the picture of this ice-covered lake and a big circular hole popped out of it. And so they don't know for sure whether that was part of the meteorite or whether it had been there before. But so they've had a couple of investigations trying to search into the lake, trying to find if they can see a piece of this rock, a meteorite fragment. So they're continually looking there. They know about the size that it should be, but they're still looking for all these type of things, most of them very tiny pebble-sized. But the mission continues. Now, a lot of these little tiny ones are easy to find because there's snow there. So you just kind of stomp around and you're like, hey, there's a hole in the snow. Dig down. Hey, here's a rock in the snow.
You just got to go.
It looks kind of melted.
Just got to make sure you go out and look for your rocks before it snows again.
Yes.
Okay. So, that might be fun too. And it's a little easier than going all the way to the Antarctic.
Yes.
All right. Now we have some more updates, don't we?
Yes, we do. Last week, we talked about Dennis Tito, the space tourist. He was sending this mission to Mars. And it was right before they made the press announcement. And, I was reading between the lines and I kind of foo-fooed it. And then they made the press announcement and I facepalmed.
Oh, really?
Because they are actually aiming to launch 2 people. They're not going to land, but they're going to orbit Mars. It'll be a 501-day mission. Now, they actually want a male and a female. So they actually are thinking about a husband and wife team. So it's looking, to test out all the
Heather,
technologies.
500 days is a long time. No video games that entire time.
Yes, think of it as a really long road trip where you're in a little,
That is the worst road trip ever. I mean,
yeah,
cool.
501 days, you're not able to get out and stretch your legs. No, it is just you and the other person and not a lot else.
I mean, it would be basically 400 and probably 98 days of just nothing. Well, I guess once you orbit Mars, at least you get a good view for a while. So that's something.
Yeah, if they have a little viewport.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a tiny little, launch vehicle. And then the thought is they'll probably have an expandable, inflatable something to give it a little bit more room. But you carry all the supplies you need and just...
They don't even have a ship. So this is not happening.
Well, no,
I mean, how can you even do something like this until you even have the fundamental technology to pull it off?
Yeah, there's the technology now. He is planning January 2018. So the plan is a lot more complicated than I thought.
Okay.
Because they are actually sending 2 people and they're actually doing...
So what was the thing that made you facepalm?
Just because I automatically assumed they were just firing off a cannon of space. Here's our thing.
Oh, okay.
Fly by Mars, go out forever, we don't care.
Yeah.
Now, the plan that they are actually planning to put 2 people in it, loop around Mars, and come back. So that's interesting.
Why the 2 people? What's the point of that? Just to have it be a manned mission? Why not have the first?
Test out all the tech to actually get to Mars. We haven't really had anybody go past the moon.
I know, but why not have the first time a private spacecraft goes to Mars be unmanned? Because it just seems like we're accomplishing 2 really. I don't know. It seems like you'd want to prove the technology one run first, and then send the next one out with people in it.
Yeah. So we'll see. Now they are fairly thinking happy thoughts for January 2018. But if they can't make that, it's not like they can just turn around and try again in a month or 2 or 6. There's actually these specific times, however many years that the planets align just right so that it can make a quick trip. So it'll be, oh gosh, I'm probably wrong, but 15 years off the top of my head. But it'll be a number of years before they can actually try this type of thing again. So
right.
I'm still skeptical pants.
Yeah.
Very much so skeptical pants.
Yeah.
The fact that they want 2 people on this mission. Wow. The fact that they expect both of those people to come back alive. Interesting. I don't know. You could like somebody a lot. After 500 days of absolutely nothing.
Right next to each other.
There might be a lot of silence.
You'd have to have like, I don't know, you'd have to have video games or something.
You'd have to have something.
You'd have to have something. But yeah. Wow. Well, if you hear anything else about that, I mean, seriously, let us know because it's very interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes. All right, Heather. Well, then why don't we head over to Mars while we're up in the stars?
And liftoff of the Atlas V with Curiosity.
Touchdown confirmed. Proceed.
So, speaking of something that really is on Mars and you don't have to be skeptical about, Curiosity.
Yes, there was a tiny little glitch.
A glitch.
Yeah, last week I was saying, hey, they've drilled in, they have the little dust. It's going to be fairly calm the next couple weeks as they try to, get that through the test and see what happens. And then they were doing status check, and on Thursday, the 28th, they were looking at it, switched the rover to an onboard sort of redundant system because there was a memory issue. So, yeah, it's related to a glitch in the flash memory where it was able to where it was addressing memory files. So it sent it into an endless loop.
So the flash memory got damaged somehow, huh?
Yes. Now, they are thinking actually cosmic ray. Like, actually for real.
Like, no joke.
No joke. This is kind of things that have happened on other spacecraft. This is not just oh my gosh, what happened in this specific case. So they're thinking that it might have damaged that specific place.
It's really something because, I mean, one of the things you've covered on the show is just the extent of the testing that they have done with this thing since it landed. So I guess maybe, did they know, did this develop more recently?
Yes, this is extremely recently. Essentially what happened is they were expecting some, you wake up, you kind of get all the data back from it, and there was no data. It was just a status check saying, "Hi, I'm here.
Ooh.
Hi, I'm here." And they're like, "Oh wait, that's not good."
Oh no.
So then they went out, and that's when they saw that the A side memory was, bugging out. So they switched it over. They have redundant systems upon redundant systems. So they switched it over to the other computer. The other set was actually the computer that was handling it all the way to Mars. So that's where it was measuring doing all the measurements and doing all the calculations on its way to Mars. So it's kind of on that computer for right now while they, bug check and try to figure out what they can do with the A side. So trying to figure out what they can do with the anomaly, see what they can.
They can keep
what they can
working
restore.
on the other side. They'll just
they'll keep.
They can
Yeah,
probably
they'll
mark
definitely
that
keep
those. I don't know if sectors is the right word, but if it's like a flash memory, they could probably mark that area of the flash memory bad, and maybe
Yeah, so it's just trying to restore it to see what they can do and how to go about it. Now, even if they get it fully operational again in the next week, the amount of science will be sort of limited. The sun is actually going to come between Mars and the Earth in early April. And it's going to sort of block radio communication for about a month. So during that team, they kind of planned to send back science data, but they weren't going to send forward any commands because they were risking too much for that something in the command would break up going across the past the sun onto Mars. So they were just kind of planning to say, hey, just keep sending your data back. We'll pick it up as we can. So for right now, there might be a quiet month to see what happens as the sun comes between us and poor little Curiosity.
Cobalt's are right on topic in the chat room. He says studies by IBM in the 1990s suggest that computers typically experience about one cosmic ray induced error per 256 megabytes of RAM per month. I don't know if that's true. That's got to be a joke, but that's very on point.
Yes. Now, I found this almost hilarious because in the office, if somebody has come to me, they're like, "What happened?" And I have absolutely no idea. There's absolutely no reason for it to do this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, cosmic ray.
That's been my standard practice.
Cosmic particle came in and just kicked your computer the wrong way. I don't know what to tell you.
Computer running slow today? Cosmic rays. I've used it for everything, Heather. I've used
Cosmic
it for
rays are...
it's been my go-to for 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so excellent. And you know what? Now it's NASA's go-to.
Now it's no,
I'm
it's
kidding.
real.
I know. They're lucky.
Just shake it there.
They're the ones that get it for real. Go figure. Well,
they get the real excuse.
That's what I get for not working in space.
That's
all
okay.
I can say. All right, Heather, we'll step on into the time machine. Let's jump back here. Here we go. All right.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, a little shake here. And,
a little bit of a trip.
I don't want to freak you out, but I forgot to fill it up from last time. Sorry.
No, what did you do?
Oh.
That was a long trip last week.
We made it, though, and not too bad of a journey either. 216 years ago, March 10th, 1797. Something big happened this week in science.
Yes, Thomas Jefferson actually presented a paper on the megalonics. Anyway, it was the first published U.S. talking about paleontology. So it was technically the first in paleontology. Now, it wasn't the only paleontological paper written by Jefferson.
Okay.
And he wasn't necessarily, peak in that specific field. He wasn't the go-to guy. But somebody had sent him some bones that were from an ancient sloth. Very big sloth. Ancient sloths were very large. This specific one was sort of medium on that large scale. Now, he looked at it and he saw a couple of bones, and he had theories that, no species would ever naturally go extinct or come out of nowhere.
Okay.
So he was using it saying, hey, I bet these are from a large lion, and actually went and talked to Lois and Clark and said, hey, guys, look out for this kind of a creature. I think it would look like this. So he was very involved with it for that case. But it was very interesting that Thomas Jefferson actually wrote the first American publication of paleontology. That was sort of intrigued me. It startled me.
Talk about a man of many hats.
Yes.
Wow. Kind of makes me feel like an underperformer.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these people in the history, they're doing this and all sorts of calculations, and they, watch Venus for 3 days and they calculate where it's going to be in 6 months.
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, wow. And
I think
I thought it was hard to, get the toaster to toast my toast right this morning.
it must have been their upbringing. Good
Yeah.
old classic upbringings. All right. Well, wow, that's a good one. So then that was 216 years ago, too. So how about
Yes.
that? All right. Well, then let me retune so that way we can look up into the sky this week.
That's right. Now, currently, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are hiding behind the sun's glare. We talked about Curiosity as sort of going into the no communication zone behind the sun. Jupiter, however, is going to be high in the south to southwest just after sunset. It'll be moving over to the west to southwest later in the evening. Saturn is about 10:11 p.m. local, will be rising into the east to southeast, moving high across the southern skies by dawn. Now, of interest that we're going to be looking at this month is the comet Pan-STARRS. It's about, 10 degrees is about the width of your fist held at arm's length.
Okay.
Now, there is a diagram in the show notes saying, if you're 40 degrees north latitude, that's like Denver, New York, Madrid. Look, 30 minutes after sunset, it should be, roughly a fist off the horizon. So north of there, you'll be a little lower early in March than shown. But look to the west around sunset, about 30 minutes after sunset, and you might be able to see a little smudge.
Oh.
Now, it depends on...
And these are comets?
It is a comet.
A comet. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh,
The comet
I
Pan-STARRS. It's
get
just
ya.
moving across the sky.
Uh-huh. I see.
So the moon will be over in that area. So just kind of look in case you can't figure out where west is if you get all confuddled. So just look towards the setting sun, and there should be the moon over there. And within a fist width of the horizon, look and see if you see a little dot and kind of smudge off to the side.
And that's the
No,
comet.
that is the comet. Now, may completely depend on, how well it's doing. It may fizzle quickly. It may make a good show. And it may highly depend on where you are to say, I'm in Denver. There's a lot of light pollution. Might not be able to see it as well than somebody in, middle of West Texas where there's absolutely no lights.
Yeah.
Very little light.
Yeah. That's going to be the spot to be.
Yep. Now, there will be another comet later this year that is sort of across your fingers about how it will, its possibilities will look like.
Well, I'm sure you'll keep us updated.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of keeping us updated, we should give a little public service announcement before we wrap up.
Yes. Sunday is daylight savings time.
Yeah. I got to remember this because I have a show on Sunday.
Yes.
Oh,
Sunday, you must spring ahead. You will lose an hour of sleep, but you're just
man.
putting it on hold until later this year.
that's going to be a rough one. Oh, boy.
Yes. But it's spring ahead, Sunday morning, so your phone may accidentally or, may do it for you. But if you have any other clocks in the house, make sure you do that.
Mhm.
I know I can generally tell the Monday after daylight savings time because some people come in an hour later going, what happened?
Oh, you have an analog clock at home, don't you?
Yes, or
Yeah.
Somebody's alarm clock will be set to wake them up and they're an hour off. They're like, where was everybody?
I always assumed those people were just using it as an excuse.
I've had a coworker that actually had that problem.
I
He's
suppose
like,
some
what the heck's
people do.
going on? I'm like, you used your alarm clock. Check your phone.
Maybe it's just
What
me.
happened?
Might just be me that uses it as an excuse when I can.
I'll use it as an excuse if I have to.
Yeah. All right.
I'll be like
Heather.
staying up playing a game and I'll be like,
Yeah. You'll be playing Sims. You'll be, and then, sorry about that. Daylight savings.
daylight savings time.
So that's
Whole
this-
messed me up.
That's this Sunday, March 10th.
Yes, it is.
And we spring ahead. So remember that, everyone. And let's all get together sometime and petition whoever we have to petition to just get rid of this daylight saving stuff.
Okay.
Find the whole thing confusing.
Yes.
All right, well, that was a great show. And, of course, we really would like it if you could join us live. Like a bunch of fine people in our chat room. We have 206 fantastic folks in there right now. Hi, everyone. And thank you for joining us. And you are invited to join us on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv. And then, of course, you can always download us later, Wednesday mornings over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right, Heather, well, thanks for the great show.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week's episode of SciByte. See you right back here next week.